Welcome to Speak Up, the BPP University Students Association podcast. I'm Dan Scrace and I'm excited to help you navigate your student journey.
Welcome back, guys, to another great episode of Speak Up with the BPP Student Association. Today we have a guest very close to my heart, my own learning support advisor. I think we met about 2 years ago.
Yeah, around that time, yes. After a colleague of mine left, I took over your case. So
yeah. So this feels really surreal, but quite nice as well.
Yeah, it is quite. Yeah.
Helene, I'm going to mispronounce your surname. So.
It's fine. It's Yerocostopoulos.
Yerocostopoulos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Greek,
yes. One and only.
Unless it wasn't more obvious. And could you summarize for me the Learning Support Service and what part you play in it?
So the Learning Support Service is really integral at BPP. So we do a plethora of things. We support students with disability adjustments, which could be adjustments for their exams, course adjustments. We also collaborate with health and safety in order for example, a student who is in a wheelchair, how they're going to get in and out of the building. But we work really closely with our ward leaders, with module leaders in order to make sure that they have the adjustments ready. Do learning support agreements. We advocate for students who, for example, have been withdrawn or are in a process of withdrawing. So we do that. We do a bit of mental health support also. We put in adjustments for example, study skills tutors. We do SPLD assessments.
What's SPLD?
The SPLD, sorry, it's the dyslexia assessments.
Oh, okay.
So we refer students.
What does SPLD stand for?
Specific learning differences.
Specific learning differences assessment.
Yeah. So that's a way of we can do a screener with them and then we can refer them in case the screener comes out positive. So we can do that.
So it's kind of like an early kind of, I don't want to use the word warning, but if someone feels that they might have dyslexia, you're able to carry out some kind of beginning tool so that they can go on.
So we have a screening tool where we assess. We ask questions, for example, can you tell left from right? Or when you read a paragraph, do you understand what you're reading? Or how was your math like at school? And then from then in, we tally the results. And then if the results show that there might be signs of dyslexia there, we send them for a diagnostic assessment. Okay. If there isn't dyslexia there, we can send them resources for them to help them along the way.
Sure. Yeah. If they've still kind of got some of those issues, but it's not, sufficient to reach the diagnostic criteria.
Exactly. So we do that. And you're asking about my role in this?
Exactly.
So I became a senior disability advisor back in August. So I manage a team where we manage students' adjustments. Then I work with my colleagues in order to make sure that the service is up to par. And we also collaborate with other teams. For example, we have a big project on accessibility about making stuff more accessible to students with disabilities, visual disabilities or hearing disabilities. So that would be a fun project to do.
That sounds really important.
Yeah, it is quite important.
Sure. I want to take you back. I'm not going to specify the number of years because I'm not rude. But I want to kind of, you're from Greece. You grew up in Greece. Athens, right?
Athens, yes.
So kind of city life in Greece. Yeah. What inspired you at that point to move to the UK? And you studied psychology, right?
Yes.
So what was going through your mind? What were you thinking?
So I came to the UK to study psychology. I did my undergraduate at the University of Kent. I did psychology degree there, 3 years degree. I specialized in child development in my third year. My absolute dream was to work for a toy company, Mattel. Are you aware of Mattel, the toy company?
I've heard of them,
or Fisher Price, something like that, and to make sure that the toys that they produce are developmentally acceptable for kids. So that was my ultimate dream. Yeah. But that was shattered. Oh. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't. It wasn't shattered. So I decided to go to the university. Now it's called the Institute of Education. It's part of the University of London. To do a master's degree in child development, so specialization in child development. But the Institute of Education specializes mostly in development, atypical developments, and in the educational side of typical development, which wasn't really something that I was particularly interested in.
So kind of mainstream, how most people are, that's what they...
It was a typical development, so a typical development in kids,
right.
but it was mostly focused in language development, like speech delays, dyslexia, dyspraxia, that kind of thing, which at the time wasn't really my cup of tea, let's say. Yeah. So after I finished, I had to go back to Greece. I wanted to go back to Greece. I spent a couple of years because in Greece you have to get your degree specialized. You have to get your degree specialized in Greece. So I wasted a couple of years there. And then I got an offer to come back to England to work for a Greek company that helps Greek students with their life in the UK. So a bit of like mentoring, a bit of like that. So I started with that, and then I moved slowly in education. In 2020, I was really, really unhappy with the job I was at because I didn't feel that it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough freedom to do what I wanted to do.
Sure.
So I saw a job here at BP, and I applied for it, and here I am 5.5 years later. 5 years later now, 5.5.
Wishing the time away.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. That's really cool. I still wonder. There's must be a part of you which thinks Mattel, or maybe I think that sense of fun is probably something you can bring to your role now.
Yeah. I think there is a sense of fun in my role. I mean, fun. You deal with students. You deal with very difficult cases. But it's really helpful to be able to help a student as much as we can, to make sure that, that you help them from the start to the finish, and at the finish line, they get their own, they get a degree. So much, it's such a different kind of happiness, to know that a student has finished and they're doing well and they succeeded because of you,
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's quite a universal in universities, because you're enabling someone to achieve so much. And for you in your role, some of the people that you're supporting experience really difficult challenges.
Exactly.
And so, it's not like they've just walked a normal path. They've sometimes walked quite a rocky path.
Exactly. And also, I think my enthusiasm with the role is also that when I first started and I passed my probation, my manager then, I asked to be referred for a diagnostic assessment for dyslexia, because I knew that something wasn't right. I knew that I had some snippets, some issues, like for example, I couldn't hold on to a conversation, or I couldn't follow directions, that. So I knew that something wasn't correct. So I got diagnosis, and that really made a big difference, because I knew that this is where it is, this is how I can deal with it. And so now that I have my students, I can empower them to say, it's a diagnosis. You'll be okay. We can work together to get the resources needed for you to succeed.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes sense. And what are the biggest challenges that you face in your role? And could you tell us more about kind of how you support students with disabilities? Like how do you help them overcome the barriers that they face?
So the process is that we ask students to send us a medical note requesting what their needs are. So based on that, we make recommendations. So we draft a learning support agreement, and we make recommendations to either the award leaders or the tutors. For example, if I have a student who has dyslexia or has extreme anxiety and they can't speak in front of the class, for example, in workshops, I can make recommendations for them to, please enable them to speak, or, be a bit patient when they speak, like that, those kind of things. So I like to have a conversation with students. I always like to check the doctor recommendations, but also see where the student is in their life and what kind of things they need, basically, Because if you have a diagnostic report from 2018 and the student is already 30, 35, you're going to say, well, the needs are not the same, at 18 to 35, for example, The biggest challenges, there's a lot of challenges.
we can't talk about other colleagues.
Yeah, challenges. I think there's a bit of a challenge in terms of IT, making sure that our spreadsheets are okay, make sure that they're safe. We encounter some challenges with other teams that they're not really sure about who we are, what we do.
Sure.
So we have to go and educate them and say, hey, we're here. This is what we do. This is how we can support students. We're starting to do that now. We're starting to infiltrate in different teams and offering our services and talking about who we are.
Yeah.
And there's in some teams there's a bit of reluctance to make the changes a little bit. There's a bit of accessibility, like why do we need to do this?
Sure. So a lot of that kind of challenge is around how you advocate,
yes,
like for your team, but also for the students.
Yeah,
and I think that kind of mirrors society, right? Because we kind of, if we have a swimming race, everyone sort of just gets put in the pool and it's like, right, okay, let's all go. But the reality is that of 100 people, there are going to be some people who, for that, isn't a particularly good test of their ability.
Yes.
And so
I mean, if there are any courses that are tied to a specific body, then it's harder to make the adjustments that we need or student needs. If it isn't, then it's much easier to make the board. Make the adjustments if you understand what I'm going to say.
Absolutely. I mean, just to clarify, I think that I've had really personal experience of that because my BPP exams have been essentially in conversation with you and with various other BPP staff to enable me to sit exams in a way that has suited my learning style and the issues that I experience. Whereas when it came to sitting the solicitor's qualifying exam through the SRA, the Solicitors Regulation Authority, and there's an entirely different process.
Yes.
But I think that it's fair to say that even when it's external exams, whether it's SQE or I think I'm not going to get this wrong, but the ACCA exams, the accountants, Certified Chartered Accountants, Association of Certified Chartered Accountants, I'll get that right eventually, and other schools, that there's a role that you have to support that student and to advocate for them to those external bodies.
Yeah. I think with our role, we need to decide what is reasonable and what is not.
Sure.
So what is reasonable based on the medical evidence or based on what the student tells you, and what is a source of, well, I've always done this, I want to do it this way, because you can't, you have always done it, but you can't really I can't really allow you to do it now. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So we need to, for me, I struggle sometimes with a fine line between, is it reasonable or do they really want it because they want it,
Yeah.
So, and some teams have been really, really good with that. Like, let's just do it. But there's a bit of reluctance there, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of those things that it must feel like very important fundamental work, because once you're able to kind of get there, so to speak, once you're able to change that mind, it will positively impact all future students. It's a big deal.
And the teams have been great. They've been really, really helpful in, let's think about this. Let's look at this. Let's look at it in different ways. So collaborating with other teams have been really, really good.
Yeah,
really good.
For sure.
Yeah.
And how do you think mental health awareness has evolved in universities? And also, what do you think could be done more within universities to support people with mental health problems?
I think mental health has really evolved since the pandemic. I remember when I started in March 2020, right before the pandemic.
A crazy time to join.
Crazy time, yeah. I was really worried that they would ask me to leave after like 4 days. I remember even in my previous job, I remember that mental health wasn't as strong, wasn't as prevalent as it is now. Sure. Like, a student might come to me and like, okay, I have these difficulties and we can deal with it. But after during the pandemic and after, it was really, really strange. It was so much, I remember that Christmas of 2020, we were asked to work overtime because we were worried about the mental health of students, and we had to to stay a bit longer during the Christmas just in case that something.
And what happened? How did it go?
I mean, we were okay at the end. No, we didn't have any crises, but we were asked to just stay a little bit longer just to just to help out. We and the safeguarding team did that.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a there's a stigma there.
Yeah.
But I think more and more people are going to see a counselor or a doctor about it, and I think it's important that people talk about it a bit more. Talk about where it is, how they're feeling, and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm kind of thinking, I won't try and remember the names of the individuals involved, but I saw on the news quite recently that there was a girl from Menai Bridge who's literally about 5 to 10 minutes drive from where I'm from, and she died I think maybe last year, a couple of years ago in Cardiff. And a while back also, I think maybe 4 years ago, there was a girl who died in Bristol University.
Yes, that's correct.
Both by suicide.
That's correct. Yeah.
And I think those must be kind of quite sharp reminders of the importance of your work.
Yeah. It's really important for students to let us know if they're struggling from the beginning, because then we can make adjustments. We can have chats with them. We have a very good counseling service. They're really helpful, and students can register directly with them. In case you're wondering, the counseling service is Total Wellness. We can put out the information. Yes, since I read the Abrahart case. I read it from start to finish, and it was really, really, really sad, and really, and it got me thinking, like, there must have been something that universities could have done better to safeguard the students not to, not to go into the thing of committing suicide.
Yeah. I think that it's a really challenging one, because you have sort of broader societal pressures, and you have kind of overarching trends in society, like commercialization of time, and an economy that is malfunctioning, and global panic around climate change and biodiversity loss. And universities, in many ways, are sort of, I view them as kind of greenhouses, where they're quite safe places, or should be quite safe places, for students to be supported in a way that they probably wouldn't experience that level of support if they're outside of university. In terms of the kind of work that you do you feel that the general student population, if we were to wander down the corridor now and just have a chat with a random student, do you feel that they would have a good knowledge of learning support? And, if so, why? And if not, what could you think can be done?
It depends. I think that if you walk down Waterloo campus or Port Sauquen campus, mostly Waterloo campus, and mostly with law students.
Sure.
They know who we are, they know what we do, and they come and ask for assistance quite early on in their journeys, as well as the apprentice programs do too. I think there's an issue with students who are in Port Sauquen, students who are not English, who might feel that there is a stigma that, I can't ask for help because it's going to look bad, and what will my family say, and my family will, there's so much family side of things that, they don't want to ask for help. And I understand that, because, I grew up in Athens in the 90s, where as mental health wasn't really talked about, like, oh, you have mental health, like, go sort yourself out, in a good way, So I can understand these students thinking, like, nobody can help me, or they come to us only when they're in crisis, which is a shame, because we can still do stuff, but it's not it's not that what we actually can do.
Well, I mean, the impression I get is that inherently learning support is just that. It's the idea of it is that it's support for your learning. It's early structural strategic intervention to allow people's issues, whether it be stress or anxiety or depression or whatever else it is, to not get to a level where they need an intervention, like the Total Wellness Service or like support from Safeguard.
Yeah, exactly. But we're doing things to infiltrate into Port Sauquen to make sure that students feel supported.
Tell me more. What kind of stuff?
The business school had organized a like an open day kind of thing,
like
induction thing. With the career service actually, and they wanted us to pop in and just say hello, we're here, come and we can help you guys, like those kind of things. And we're slowly working on it.
It's interesting. I think it's definitely, I think I've grown up in a time. I also was having these thoughts, having these experiences in like the 90s and early 2000s in the UK. And I think the UK, although mental health used to be very much stigmatized, it really developed. I've never lived abroad for any like significant length of time, so I can't comment on kind of what other countries are like, but certainly the reputation that they have is that there's a very, very different attitude.
Like, I did a stint at a Greek university in 2005, so I can get my degree finalized.
Sure.
And I remember, one of the teachers said to us, "You're either going to sink or swim here." And I was like, I just came back from Kent that, they are, but even in Kent in the early 2000s, we knew that mental health counseling was somewhere over there, but we didn't really know where it was, So I think now with BP, we are more open to talk about mental health. We're more open to talk about anxiety, depression, and all that. And we are more eager to help students and refer them to services that can help them.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so what are your professional aspirations and your, where would you like to go in terms of your own personal development? And from here, you've mentioned a couple of the kind of projects that you're working on. What does 2025 look like for you?
Good question. I would like to. I'm a great advocate for disabilities because I am dyslexic myself. So I'm a very big advocate in dyslexia and how can you make people, not how can you make, how can you help people flourish and put out their best selves. So I'm a bit, I'm an advocate of disabilities, and I think that we need to take accessibility further.
Okay.
So I think the 2025 plan, I'm working with my colleagues and my manager. The 2025 plan is just to get that together and get other teams to work on it together so we can, make sure that everything is accessible to students who need it.
Kind of spread the ethos.
We're doing quite a few bits on it. So I think back in November, I took part in a kind of like an accessibility study.
Okay.
Because there was an internal module, internal course for people, and they asked me for my opinion to check whether the hub was accessible, information was accessible. I had to comment on fonts, on images, on everything. That was quite fun.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of my goals, to make sure that things are accessible for students. I'm hoping that in 2025 I will have a full functioning team.
Yes.
So once I do that,
how many people in your team now, and how many people are there supposed to be, like all the positions?
So now we are 7 people.
Okay.
7, yeah. And
spread across all of the campuses across the UK.
They're mostly in London, but we are recruiting for Manchester and Birmingham now.
Okay.
And then we're gonna have 4. So it's Maya, who is the learning support manager. There's Christian and we have 4 people each, or 3 and 4, something like that. So hopefully with a team, I really enjoy mentoring. Yeah. I really enjoy the HR aspects of it. So I really want to do that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I'm also doing a counseling degree. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Yeah.
So hopefully.
Are you what level?
I'm level 3 now.
Level 3.
I'm level 3.
Which is degree level, right?
It's
college.
I think it's undergraduate, first year undergraduate. Okay. Yeah. So I have a little bit more to go, but I'm really enjoying level 3.
Fantastic.
So hopefully I'm hoping that I can take it further.
I think from personal experience, that insight that you've taken from the course, I think influences your role as a disability advisor. It's kind of, I mean, I'll be honest, I think probably most people could either benefit from having counselling or from training as counsellors, because so many of the skills should just be human skills.
Yes.
Active listening and so on.
Yeah, but it's so important to have active listening, to be patient with the student, and just to be there and be present with them so they can talk to you about what's going on.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like we're in good hands.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much.
To be welcomed onto this podcast episode. And lastly, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Helene.
Goodbye.
Stay tuned, be sure to subscribe, and let's ensure every voice at BPP University is heard. Thanks for joining us on Speak Up. We'll catch you on the next one.